Hello, and welcome to the Gameplay Cast's review for the first or third person RPG, Avowed. Or is that Avoid? Obsidian built its reputation on classic titles like Fallout New Vegas and Knights of the Old Republic 2. These were great games that showed their ability as a studio to make great RPGs from an IP that wasn't their own. Since their acquisition by Microsoft, however, the studio has focused on making new IPs such as The Outer Worlds, Grounded, and now Avowed. While Grounded may have been a pretty solid hit, I think it's fair to say that The Outer Worlds was a wee bit wide of the mark. As a result, I think it's also fair to say that Avowed was the studio's chance to flex their creative muscles and shows that they still have what it takes to make a good AAA RPG. Avowed's story centres on the player character, aka the Imperial Envoy, a godlight which in Avowed means a character that's been given a facial disfigurement from an as yet unrevealed god. There is reasons why the disfigurement is so kind of weird looking, as you'll discover throughout the game, but I don't really want to spoil the main storyline. Anyway, you're sent to the Living Lands to investigate and stop a plague known as the Dream Scourge. The Emperor wants this disease dealt with, as it's been harming the Empire's interests and expansion in the region. The game opens with your journey coming to a crashing end, as your own fort fires its cannons on you, destroying your ship, leaving you washed up on the shore. In the fort, you come face to face with a garrison afflicted with the Scourge, and once dealt with, your journey to the city of Paradise and beyond begins. The game uses the classic first-person hack-and-slash combat mechanics you would expect from a sword and sorcery fantasy, with the nice addition of gunpowder firearms, as well as the option to switch to third-person mode if you prefer. All in all, the game's opening was pretty standard, and I had high expectations given the level of investment, asking price, and Obsidian's reputation. While I'm not sure Obsidian or Microsoft ever uttered the words Skyrim killer, I think us as players all hoped for and expected something on that level. I mean, Skyrim came out in 2011, and I don't think a single hack and slash RPG adventure game has really come close to it since. But with 14 years of technological advances, much more powerful PCs and consoles, dev tools and libraries, and Microsoft's unlimited resources backing them, surely Obsidian had a great shot. Unfortunately, the game we've got does not seem to line up at all with the original 2021 release trailer, and for me, this is a crying shame. The dark and gritty sword and sorcery setting has been morphed into a bright neon paletted mushroom covered, modernity tick box approved world. Uh-oh. So what's the bottom line, you ask? Should you buy Avowed, or avoid it like the plague? Is it a dream scourge, or a shining example of RPG prowess? Well, I hate to be the envoy of bad tidings, see what I did there? But honestly, Avowed is definitely not worth buying at full price. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, and overall, this is probably one to avoid. Keep watching to find out why, and to see Avowed's final score out of 10. As with most of these type of games, players can choose to fight with melee, ranged, and magic. Straight away, I like that gunpowder firearms have been included in the ranged options. Magic too feels pretty decent and powerful to wield, though I soon found myself sneaking around with an arquebus, trying to snipe enemies at range, before fully reverting to type the minute I got the sword Horsecutter. After that, I spent most of the rest of the game switching between gun and greatsword. I don't know why, but even with the severe lack of enemy variety, I got immense satisfaction from the slow-mo critical hits with the gun. Overall, as you can tell, I quite liked elements of the combat. I can see that they've tried to take the rather dated, clunky first-person hack-and-slash system that we've seen a million times, and iterate on it by adding some attack patterns and timing elements. So you'll probably need to learn a few enemy movesets, as well as when to dodge and parry. This would have probably been really good about 5 years ago, and if Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 hadn't just dropped with a combat system that's pretty much superior in every way. But at least Obsidian tried, and it's not terrible. At least you can say it's kinda casual, so it's not as intense as something like Kingdom Come. Outside of some moves that seem to telegraph and hit you from too far away, it's probably good enough. In a similar vein, I also like some of the quality of life elements, such as not having to buy and carry ammunition. I get that some hardcore players out there might get annoyed with this, but I'm of the opinion I'm playing to have fun, and managing how many bullets to buy or running out mid-fight is really quite tedious. A strange thing they have done, however, is inventory management. since you can just magically move and sell items from your stash in camp at any time. This kind of completely undermines the encumbrance system. Don't get me wrong, it's another tedious mechanic, but here it's like half in and half out, like they ran out of time and didn't finish implementing it. My second most liked element of the game was probably the exploration and the density of the areas. It's nowhere near Skyrim's scale, but exploring the map is at least fun, and even though the areas are pretty small, it does feel dense. Kind of like the inverse of Starfield. Equally, you are nearly always rewarded with some loot and some of the best weapons in the game for your trouble. I genuinely did find myself wandering around the map and going off-piste just to see what was down there, or in that cave, or over that wall. Meaning I was clearly engaged in the exploration element on some level, and again, it's not bad. Yes, the areas are not massive, but it feels like there's plenty going on, as opposed to a huge barren meteor, for example. How was the leveling up and character development options, I hear you ask? Actually, not too bad either. The core characteristics are lifted pretty much like for like from D&D, and there's plenty of abilities to choose from that, when combined with equipment and combat style, will allow you to specialise and play the game how you choose. You will notice I haven't mentioned the character creation screen thus far, and that is because I have a few issues associated with it that will be in the next section. What I will say is that outside of the godlike face cancer elephant man options, you can create a reasonably customised character. It's nowhere near the best character creator, but it's fine, I suppose. Finally, when it comes to the story and the RPG dialogue options within it, while I haven't done multiple playthroughs, I did cross-check a few different options. For example, this is a slight spoiler, but I chose to spare my would-be assassin at the start of the game, as my meta sense was tingling that doing this might help me out later. And it did. Equally, as a result of this choice, I could have sent in the Steel Garrote to take them down later, or stood by my choice. So the game clearly isn't like Dragon Age Failhard. That said, I did find some of the narrative quite dull at times, and ended up skipping through a lot of conversations. A lot of it feeling a bit more exposition dump than cool story. To be fair though, these types of games do tend towards a lot of dialogue, so take this with a little pinch of salt. To be honest, this may be more down to the fact that there was no real sense of urgency or stakes associated to the main plotline. Instead, there was a lot of weird dream speak in riddles. This is probably the heart of the issue. As I mentioned at the start, you play the part of the Imperial Envoy sent to counter the Dream Scourge. But mainly, this consists of moving from area to area, killing mouldy versions of enemies, and talking to a disembodied voice. I was kind of intrigued to discover the origin of your godlike gift/curse, but nothing about the Dream Scourge felt threatening or taken seriously by the game world and its characters, bar a few kind of slow time scuffles, which even then, no one seemed to be really that worried about. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The controversy caused by the art director saying he wanted to make the game to annoy Elon Musk and the chuds, or whatever that was. I try not to comment on things like this in my reviews, as I just want to take the game as is. But this is so ironic that it's worth mentioning. Because perhaps one of my biggest issues, and there are many by the way, is the frankly horrifically bad art style and colour palette used throughout the game. Pretty much the first thing that hits you in the game creator is the whole godlike thing. Every option looks either bizarre, like I'm at some kind of lame girl band concert, or is just weirdly grotesque, making your character look retarded. Clearly, people at Obsidian knew the godlike options sucked because they added an option to just turn it off for the entire game. So even though they've made this godlike theme the main driver of the plot, they couldn't create a single cool option. As a result, my character walked around the entire game with a literal piece of bark stuck to his face. Remember when games made you look and feel cool, everyone? Don't worry, it gets worse. The game suffers from the same purple-blue neon colour palette as Dragon Age Failhard, albeit to a lesser extent, but nearly everything is bright and colourful, especially some of the animals that literally look like they're from a kid's colouring book. And this is before we even address the weird race of neon-coloured furries. Like, what is that supposed to be? I assume someone who worked on the game has a pet chinchilla and decided to add chinchilla men in, or maybe they're just full-blown furries. Who knows? Each of the districts in the Living Lands is overgrown with mushrooms and fungus, so much so that if you told me the game was sponsored by Quorn, I'd believe it. You know, seeing some strange glowing mushrooms in a cave or having them in specific areas makes sense and is fine. But these are literally everywhere. I would bet that every shot in the game, even ones inside the towns, would have at least 2 fungal growths in them. Oh, and did I mention that most are in that awesome neon colour scheme? Anyway, if you use some sunglasses and persevere, you can eventually learn to just ignore the garish colours and Quan advertising. However, the problem then is that you just start to notice that the Living Lands, and in fact the Adrian Empire, are all just made up of multicoloured rainbow people. They don't have anything in common other than they wear the same uniforms. Even the voice actors have accents from all over the world. Remember how the Redguard are from a hot desert region, so they have dark skin and African accents, and the Nords are from a cold, snowy region and are pale and sound like Vikings? This is called clever use of human factors to create believability and immersion. In Avowed, there isn't a single obvious racial trait, outside of dwarves being short and stocky, and elves having pointy ears. It's like every area is full of generic cosplayers that turned up to an international convention. There might be some lore-based reason for this, but having 2 Adrians next to each other, one with an Australian accent and one with a Spanish accent, is just jarring. Add in the game recycles the same 5 faces constantly, the weird looking hair and beards, cosplay style armour, and I just couldn't get immersed in the game or any of its factions. It all comes across as very shallow, which is also reflected in some of the game's other mechanics. For example, there's no lockpicking minigame. Why? Oblivion had that 20 years ago. The enchanting and crafting systems are basically useless, unless it's because my character class was limited or something, but there's no point in upgrading anything but unique weapons and armour. It's always easy to just buy the next level up when you get to the new area. Equally, you can only enchant unique weapons, so you can't make an item unique by adding a custom enchantment, and you can't enchant armour either. It feels kinda half-baked again, just like the encumbrance system. In a similar vein, while I don't mind that the companion level up system is much more limited, you can't equip your companions or upgrade their gear, making them basically useless on the higher difficulty. All I use them for is as distractions, to allow me to pick off mobs from a distance. Maybe on easy and normal they might actually do something, but on the hardest difficulty my companions went down in all but the easiest of boss battles. Story-wise, I don't really want to spoil the storyline, but it's pretty obvious where this was all going, based on the storyline that you are a godlike with no god. And probably that's giving it away, I don't want to say any more. All in all, it was fairly average, no real kind of obvious plot twists. The people you think are the bad guy when you meet them turn out to probably be the bad guy. Most of your choices lead you down a certain road. There's a little bit of play with the narrative, so you can be on one side or the other. But generally, the people, you know, the woman with the flaming eyes, you can probably tell she was always going to end up being a bad guy. Maybe you can join it if you pick options that I didn't. But all in all, it's kind of pretty standard. Nothing to really write home about. And my last criticism is basically a part 2 to the cosplay feel of the world and its factions. And that is that if you're looking for woke elements in video games, you won't have to look too hard to see them here. Avowed is chock full of modernity, which only serves to further damage any remaining shreds of escapism and immersion. Here's a few examples. I haven't gone round and counted, but a suspicious amount of the guards and melee combat based characters you see and speak to during the course of the game are female. In a fantasy setting, yes, there are going to be female fighters, and that's fine. But we are talking like an 80% ratio of women to men here. It's definitely noticeable. There's a side quest about pregnancy prevention / abortions where the NPC involved makes you spell out why you are helping them about 3 times. The vast majority of the male character models are androgynous and effeminate looking. Equally, I assume this is done procedurally, but the procedurally generated NPCs has resulted in some very strange combinations. Oh, and of course, the only good companion turns out to be gay, even though he spends all his time when you meet him trying to flirt with women. There's others, but I really can't be bothered. It's all very tick box and dull. In summary, I think Avowed's combat, exploration and leveling system, combined with a number of other elements, shows the foundations of a decent game. However, you can see that behind the scenes, this game has gone through a complete tonal shift, indicating that the game development has probably not been the smoothest of processes. This, I think then, has led to many elements of the game, such as the enchanting and lockpicking, feeling unfinished, or just missing completely. Something I forgot to mention properly is the fact that along with every NPC having the same 5 faces, every area in the game seems to also be inhabited by basically the same 5 enemy types. It's just nowhere near good enough to justify a £60, that's $70 asking price. I stand by all of my criticisms of the game, and it's certainly not a great or even good game. That said, I did enjoy some of the combat. I did feel like I got to mostly choose narrative options that affected the story outcome, and that parts of the world were worthwhile, even fun to explore. What's the score on the door then? Well, my gut's giving me a number, and always go with your gut. I award Avowed a disappointingly average 5 out of 10. The game's decent combat and exploration are far from enough to make it stand out, or even memorable. Considering how old Skyrim and even Oblivion are now, I'm not sure this game beats them in any aspect. And that's not nostalgia talking, it's just a cold logic comparison. I remember Martin Septim's name, I remember the Blades, I remember Ulfric Stormcloak, the lore of the Dwemer, and what they did to the Snow Elves. I remember that shit because those games were cool and made me want to know more. Take a more character driven experience like Mass Effect. Okay, there were 3 games, but I remember the characters and their stories. When it comes to Avowed, I can barely remember any of the characters, and I was playing the game yesterday. Every element of the game is just so forgettable and shallow. Maybe it's just me, but when you play an RPG, you want to be a cool, larger-than-life character on an adventure against the odds. Not a dude with a face that looks like it's got some kind of fungal infection, or in my case, a piece of bark glued to his face and twigs for hair. Equally, you want to be part of a group of similarly cool characters that are interesting and worthwhile talking to. This is it really, the story has no gravitas, no weight, no urgency, and £60 for a generic, forgettable RPG is daylight robbery. If you have Game Pass and want something to tide you over until better games come out, then maybe this will scratch the itch, but to be honest, Baldur's Gate 3 is cheaper and superior in every way. Hell, the HD remaster of Skyrim is on Game Pass too, so maybe play that instead, as honestly, Avowed is light years behind Skyrim. So my final thoughts, given the quality of this game as well as the performance of Obsidian's other titles since the Microsoft acquisition, I honestly don't think they are the same studio anymore, and I'll be thinking twice before buying or even playing any of their games in the future. I haven't bothered to check, but I'd be willing to bet that few if any of the actually talented staff who worked on their great games of old are still at the company. It really is getting hard to tell who the worst publisher is these days. EA, or Microsoft, or Warner Brothers, or Ubisoft, or Sony. They're all up to their necks. Well, that was Avowed, and as always, f*** Erebus.